Hey y'all, today I'm making a super easy pillow and quilted pillowcase that you can make in an hour or two, so it's a perfect weekend project for when you want a touch of something handmade in your home or if you need to give a gift. I'm starting from scratch and actually making the pillow part myself, so you can skip the first part of this video if you already have a pre-made pillow insert and just want to make the pillowcase. For the pillow, I have an old sheet that I no longer use, and I'm going to begin by cutting two 19.5 by 19.5 inch squares. Then I'll sew those squares right sides together using a 3/8 inch seam allowance and leaving an opening that is about 5 inches wide in one of the sides. Once these are sewn together, I'll use the opening to turn it right side out. I also have an old bed pillow that I'm not using, and I already cut open to use some stuffing for another project, so I'll use the rest of that in my pillow now. I stuff all of it through the opening, and then I'm going to sew up the gap as close to the edge as possible. Then I'll take a second to fluff it up and try to push some of the stuffing into the corners so it has a nice shape. And now I can move on to the pillowcase. For that, I have 5 coordinating colors in about 1/4 yard cuts. These are left over from the full quilt I made for another video, which I will link down below. I start by cutting them in strips that are 4.5 inches wide by 25 inches long. I just need one strip for each color so that I end up with 5 strips total. Once the strips are cut, I'll arrange them in a pattern that I like, remembering that the 2 end pieces will end up being beside each other too. After that, I'll sew all the strips together in this order using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then I'll iron down the seams to be alternating, and I'll fold this piece right side down so that the 2 end sides are lined up, and I'll sew those together as well. I'll give this seam a press too, but since there's an odd number of strips, this seam can go either way, and I'll just end up repressing some of the seams to be in the right direction when I'm sewing the next portion. So now I have a tube of fabric strips, and I'm going to lay that out long ways on my cutting mat, trim a little bit off of one side so that the edge is perfectly straight, and then I'll cut this tube into strips that are 4.5 inches wide. I will end up with 5 strips. And now it's time to pick apart some seams. I'll start anywhere I want on the first strip, just picking apart one seam so that I can lay it out flat. This is going to be my upper corner where the diagonal pattern starts. Then I'm going to pick up the next one, decide which seam needs to be unpicked in the second row by looking at the first 2 prints of my first flat strip. Then I'll unpick the seam between those first 2 prints. When I lay this one next to the first, I can see that the prints all have shifted over one spot. I continue doing this until all the strips are laid out flat, and I take my time so that I'm being careful to make sure my diagonal stripes come out correctly. Now it's time to start sewing the strips together. First, though, I have to pin the first 2 strips together with nested seams. This is what a nested seam looks like up close. This is a crucial step, and I take my time doing it so that when I sew the strips together, the corners of the squares are as close to lined up as I can get them. Then I'll go row by row, pinning and then sewing and then pinning and then sewing, and at the end of this, my pillow top should look like this. You could add some batting to this and actually quilt it if you want, but I'm going to leave it like this since this is a fast project and I'm happy with the way it looks. The last step is the back side of the pillowcase, and for that we're going to do an envelope closure, so I'll start by cutting 2 rectangles from a coordinating backing fabric. I cut mine to be 19 inches by 12 inches, but you could probably do 19 by 11. With the first rectangle, I'm going to fold one of the long sides down twice, about 1/2 inch, and then press along the fold. Then I'll sew along the fold with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I just need to do this for one of the longer sides. Then I'll take my second rectangle and do the same thing, but I'm only going to fold it once, press, and then sew. Next, I'll take the first rectangle with the double fold, lay it right sides facing down on my pillow top with the seam side in the middle and the raw edges lined up. After lining it up, I need to trim off a bit of the excess on one side. Then I'll pin it down and sew along the bottom 3 raw edges with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. With the next rectangle, I'll do the exact same thing. Lay it down right sides facing, align the raw edges, trim the excess, pin it down, and sew along those bottom 3 edges. And I'm done. I'll just trim the loose threads, turn it right side out using my finger to push out the corners, and stuff my homemade pillow into it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.